The World at Noon. I am Temitope Olajuwola. Nigerian president departs Abuja for AU summit in Niamey. 4 African nations barred from attending US-Africa summits. China expands lockdowns as COVID cases hit daily record. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari today departs Abuja for Niamey, Niger Republic, to attend the African Union Summit on Industrialization and Economic Diversification, as well as the extraordinary session on African Continental Free Trade Area. The president, during the trip, will also attend the launch of the French version of the book titled Muhammadu Buhari, The Challenges of Leadership in Nigeria, as well as inaugurate the Muhammadu Buhari Boulevard named after him by the government of the Republic of Niger. The naming of the boulevard and launch of the book written by John Padden, a professor of international studies at George Mason University, Northern Virginia, United States, precedes the AU summit tomorrow. President Buhari is expected to deliver his national statement at the summit with the theme Industrializing Africa, renewed commitment towards an inclusive and sustainable industrialization and economic diversification. The high-level summit, being convened as part of the Africa Industrialization Week commemorative activities, is expected to adopt a declaration highlighting the importance of industrialization and economic transformation in the continent and how to make progress in that regard. Meanwhile, the United States will host 49 African head of states and the African Union envoy in Washington for a 3-day U.S.-Africa summit between 13th to 15th of next month. The U.S. views this as an opportunity to strengthen ties with Africa. However, 4 countries have not been invited: Mali, Burkina Faso, Sudan, and Guinea. There will be side events and meetings for civil society and business leaders from Africa to engage with the Americans. It is the second such summit under U.S. President Joe Biden's administration, with the inaugural one hosted around the same time last year. Malaysia's king today appointed opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim as the country's new prime minister. Anwar's coalition had obtained the highest number of votes in recently held general elections, but failed to obtain an absolute majority, opening a period of negotiations. The opposition leader, who has been running for office for 4 years and has spent almost a decade in prison on sodomy charges, will be sworn in this evening. King Al-Sultan Abdullah Sultan Ahmed San's office stated this. The king announced his decision after a meeting held in the early hours of today to discuss the political situation with the country's other sultans, who take turns to rule for 5 years. The United Kingdom and South Africa have agreed to strengthen their health partnership to help prevent pandemics. The agreement was signed as South African President Cyril Ramaphosa visited the Francis Crick Institute, a biomedical research facility in London, during a state visit to the UK. This is the World at Noon, coming to you from Osun State Broadcasting Corporation, Voice of the West, Nigeria. Now, a mid-news message. Democracy can only thrive in an atmosphere of the rule of law and constitutionalism. Be law-abiding. Sudanese health authorities have announced the record of 26 death cases due to an outbreak of dengue fever. Dengue fever is a mosquito-borne disease that occurs in tropical areas of the world, usually spreading near stagnant sources of water. Head of the Health Emergency and Epidemic Control Directorate at the Sudanese Health Ministry, Montasir Mohammed Osman, said in a statement that 26 deaths, 462 confirmed cases, and 3,439 suspected cases of dengue fever have been recorded in 9 states. Most of the cases were reported in North Kordofan, West Kordofan, and North Darfur. The official added that the ministry has adopted necessary measures, including sending teams to combat the disease carrier in the states, provision of medicines and blood, doing daily monitoring and investigation operations, as well as assigning a contact number for reports of infections and suspected cases. Pandemic lockdowns are expanding across China, including in a city where factory workers clashed this week with police as the number of COVID-19 cases hits a daily record. Residents of 8th district of Shenzhou, home to 6.6 million people, were told to stay at home for 5 days beginning today, except to buy food or get medical treatment. Daily mass testing was ordered in what the city government called a war of annihilation against the virus. During clashes on Tuesday and yesterday, Zhengzhou police beat workers protesting over a pay dispute at the biggest factory for Apple's iPhone located in an industrial zone near the city. Meanwhile, Foxconn, the Taiwan-based owner of the factory, apologized today for what it called an input error in the computer system and said it will guarantee that the pay is the same as agreed to and in official recruitment posters. On the 4th day of an increasingly urgent search, Indonesia rescuers narrowed their work today to a landslide where dozens are believed trapped after an earthquake that killed at least 271 people, more than a third of them children. A day earlier, searchers rescued a 6-year-old boy who was trapped for 2 days under the rubble of his collapsed house. Chief of the National Disaster Mitigating Agency, Mr. Shurayanto, said he was found alive next to the dead body of his grandmother. It was the most deadly earthquake in Indonesia since a 2018 earthquake and tsunami in Sulawesi killed about 4,340 people. Many of the more than 1,000 rescue personnel are using backhoe loaders, sniffer dogs, and live detectors, as well as jackhammers and bear ants to speed up the search in the West East area of Sigentil village, where a landslide set off by Monday's quake left tons of mud, rocks, and trees in Gugenang sub-district. Meanwhile, Indonesian President Joko Widodo visited Cianjur today and said that their focus will be on one location where 39 are still missing. Here again are the highlights of the world at noon. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari today departs Abuja for Niamey, Niger Republic, to attend the African Union Summit on Industrialization and Economic Diversification, as well as the extraordinary session on African Continental Free Trade Area. The United States will host 49 African head of states and the African Union envoy in Washington for a 3-day U.S.-Africa summit between 13th to 15th of next month. However, 4 countries have not been invited. They are Mali, Burkina Faso, Sudan, and Guinea. Pandemic lockdowns are expanding across China, including in a city where factory workers clashed this week with police as the number of COVID-19 cases hits a daily record. That was the word at noon, edited by Temitokbe Olajuwola. Today's news talk by Adeboye Popola notes that any effort to check the migration of Nigerians to overseas countries in search of greener pastures require collaboration and synergies in the area of human development, now that the federal government is expressing concern on the youth's overseas driving.
The statement credited to the Minister of State for Science and Technology, Henry Iko, on the federal government planned policy to end the exodus of Nigerians to overseas countries in search of greener pastures recently has been generating reactions on the various news platforms. The minister, who was quoted as volunteering the statement while receiving the secretary of the Digital Cooperation Organization, Ms. Deborah Yahaya, noted that it would require collaboration and synergies in the area of human development to achieve a virile nation where Nigerians in different productive ages will be fully empowered. This statement is highly encouraging as it shows that the country is not completely dried up of visionary technocrats in policy formulation for capacity building and sustainable growth for Nigerian youths. It goes without saying that over the years, there has not been a practical policy that mobilized Nigerian youths for programs that focuses on developing their innate skills to productive knowledge. Therefore, it is important to know that it is only through collaboration and synergies in the area of human development that will make any policy aimed at transforming the potentials of individual youths to productive knowledge for job creation can be achieved. For instance, there are lots of Nigerians who had put local materials together to contrive power plants, solar energy, automotive engines, and aircraft, and still remained in their respective local communities without any hope of human and financial assistance to make their dreams of becoming an investor realized. Many of potential investors have died in penury, while the country's economy they should have transformed is also in comatose. Likewise, the country's scientific policies, which regard individuals without formal education as quacks in any area of science discipline, is also a barrier to a recognition of investors without formal education whose discoveries are hanging on innate skills. It is equally necessary to know that some capacity building workshops put together, particularly by politicians, are only meant to score political points as they lack collaboration and synergies in the area of human development. This is due to the fact that the variables needed for capacity building by participants are either completely ignored or not supplied fully. The time spent to attend such a workshop would end up as a waste. This makes the observation by the Minister of State for Science and Technology so germane to any effort aimed at empowering Nigerian youths for self-sustaining and making the country an industrial nation. It is for this purpose that today's news talk is calling on the country's policy makers to build a viral Nigeria by ensuring that the potentials of every Nigeria are fully tapped through the capacity building technologies that will promote synergies with human development. It is only by this method that jobs will be created to engage millions of the youths that migrate to overseas countries.
That news talk by Adeboye Popola exposed the statements by the Minister of State for Science and Technology and called for collaboration and synergies in the areas of human development as a means to build a viral nation that provides capacity building for youths. The piece was read by Toyin Ojayemi. For more about us, visit www.osbcng.org. Thanks for listening. Good afternoon.
It's entertaining.